Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Everyday English Channel. We are so happy you decided to spend some time with us today. Really, out of everything you could be doing right now, you chose this, and that genuinely means the world to us. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jack. And if you are new here, first of all, welcome. Seriously, welcome. This is a place where we talk about English the way English actually lives, not in textbooks, not in grammar drills, but in real, honest, sometimes messy conversation. And we want you to stay.
Please stay. Hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't already. Not because we're supposed to say that, but because tell them, Jack.
Every new subscriber, I feel it. I'm not even joking. Every single one. It's like a little reminder that what we're doing here matters to someone somewhere. And that keeps us going more than anything else. So please, subscribe. It genuinely means everything to us.
Okay, today's topic. And I think this one is going to hit very close to home for a lot of people watching.
It already makes me a little uncomfortable, and I speak English for a living.
Which is saying something. Today we are talking about the experience of knowing English, understanding it, reading it, maybe even writing it, but the moment you have to open your mouth and actually speak it, everything just stops.
The freeze, the complete and total freeze.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You've studied, you've watched videos, you've read articles. You understand when someone speaks to you, but then they ask you a question and your brain just goes offline, like a computer that's overheated.
It's one of the most frustrating experiences in language learning because you feel like all that work you've done, it means nothing in that moment. You're standing there with a head full of vocabulary and grammar rules, and you can't produce a single sentence.
And the worst part is that the pressure makes it even worse, because now you're panicking about the fact that you're panicking. It's this spiral.
It's a spiral, exactly. Why can't I speak? Why am I not speaking? Oh no, I'm thinking about why I'm not speaking instead of actually speaking. Now even more time has passed. This is a disaster.
And meanwhile, the other person is just standing there looking at you, and you want to disappear into the floor.
I have been that person. Not in English, but I studied Japanese for a period of time, and I remember the first time someone actually spoke to me in Japanese and expected a response. My mind just produced nothing, like I had never studied a single word.
What did you do?
I smiled, very widely, for a very long time. Just a big frozen smile, while my brain tried to reboot.
The smile of someone who has completely left their body.
Completely left their body, yes. My body was there, I was not.
I think almost every person learning a language has that moment, and a lot of people take that moment as proof that they can't do it. See, I can't speak English. I'm not a speaker. This isn't for me.
And that interpretation is so wrong, so completely wrong. That freeze doesn't mean you can't speak. It means you haven't practiced the specific skill of speaking under pressure, which is a completely different skill from understanding English.
That's actually the key thing here, and I want to say it clearly because I think people really misunderstand this. Listening, reading, and speaking are not the same skill. They're related, but they're different. You can be very strong in one and still be developing in another.
Think about it this way. A person who has read 1,000 books about swimming still needs time in the water. The knowledge and the physical skill are separate things. Language is the same.
Speaking is a physical skill. Actually, literally. Your mouth, your tongue, the muscles in your face, they need practice. The sounds of English don't come naturally to someone whose first language uses different sounds. Your mouth is literally not trained yet.
And that's not an insult. That's just biology. When babies learn to talk, they spend months just making random sounds, experimenting, failing, trying again. And nobody looks at a baby who can't say a word at 4 months old and says, well, clearly this one will never speak.
Which would be a very alarming thing to say to a baby.
Extremely alarming. But we say the equivalent of that to ourselves all the time. I can't do this. I'll never get it. After, what, a few awkward attempts?
So let's talk about what's actually happening in the brain when you freeze, because I think understanding it makes it feel less like a personal failure and more like a solvable problem.
Yes, let's get into it. So, when you're trying to speak in a second language, your brain is doing multiple things at the same time. You're thinking of what you want to say, the meaning, the idea. You're searching for the right vocabulary. You're trying to remember grammar rules. You're monitoring your own pronunciation. And you're doing all of this while also processing what the other person just said and managing the social anxiety of being watched and judged.
That is an enormous amount of tasks running simultaneously.
It's genuinely enormous. And in your first language, most of that is automatic. You don't think about grammar. You don't search for words. It's just there, fluent. But in your second language, it's all manual. Every step requires conscious effort.
And that's why the freeze happens. Your brain hits a processing limit. It can't handle all those tasks at once, so it just crashes.
The good news is that with practice, more and more of those processes become automatic. Vocabulary stops being something you search for and starts being something that just appears. Grammar stops being a checklist and starts being a feeling, like you just know something sounds right.
But you only get there by speaking. You can't think your way to fluency. You have to talk your way there.
Which is easier said than done when every attempt feels terrifying.
So let's talk about why it feels so terrifying, because I don't think it's really about the language. I think it's about something deeper.
Oh, totally. It's about looking foolish. It's about being judged. It's about opening your mouth and having someone think you're not intelligent because you couldn't find the right word.
And that fear is completely understandable, because in your first language, you are articulate, you are maybe funny, you can make complex arguments, you have a personality that comes through when you talk. And then, in English, suddenly you sound like a child. Simple sentences, wrong tenses, long pauses.
And it feels like people are seeing a reduced version of you, like they can't see how smart or interesting you actually are because the language is getting in the way.
And that gap between who you are and how you sound in English, that's the thing that makes people want to stay silent. It's not that they don't know the words, it's that the words they know don't feel like enough to represent them.
That is a real thing. I've heard so many people say exactly that. My English doesn't sound like me.
And here's what I want to say to that. That feeling is temporary. It is a phase. There will come a moment, and it might be a specific conversation, a specific day, where you say something in English and you think, yes, that's me. That sounded like something I would actually say.
And when that moment happens, it's incredible, because suddenly the language stops being a costume you're wearing and starts being an actual part of you.
But you have to go through the uncomfortable in-between to get there. There's no shortcut around the phase where you sound like less than you are. You have to walk through it.
So how do you walk through it? Because just saying practice speaking isn't very helpful if the reason you're not practicing is that speaking is terrifying.
Right, it's circular. Just speak more. But speaking scares me. Then speak more. Thanks. Very useful.
So let's get practical. First thing, and this is something I really believe, you need to lower the stakes of your practice. The reason speaking to a real person feels so hard is that the stakes feel high. They might judge you. It might be awkward. You can't pause or rewind.
So start in situations where there's no consequence. Talk to yourself. I know that sounds strange, but talk to yourself in English. Narrate your day. When you're making coffee, say, I'm making coffee. When you're walking down the street, describe what you see. When you have an opinion about something, say it out loud in English, alone, in your room.
This is so underrated as a practice technique because you're building the physical habit of producing English sounds without any social pressure. You're training your mouth. You're making the process a little more automatic.
And it feels ridiculous at first. I want to acknowledge that. It feels very silly to stand in your kitchen narrating your breakfast, but something is happening in your brain and your mouth even when it feels silly.
The other thing I want to say about speaking to yourself, it lets you notice your own gaps without embarrassment. You're trying to say something and you realize you don't know the word. Great, make a note, look it up, try again. No one saw that happen. It's just you and the language.
Now, the next thing, and this one is about what's actually going on when you freeze in conversation. Usually, the freeze happens because you're trying to find the perfect sentence before you start talking. You want the complete, correct, polished sentence ready to go before you open your mouth.
And that's not how speaking works, not even for native speakers.
Not at all. Native speakers start sentences without knowing exactly how they're going to finish them. They change direction in the middle. They pause. They say and like, and you know. Speaking is not writing. It is not polished. It's built in real time.
And one of the most freeing things you can do as a language learner is give yourself permission to think out loud, to start talking before you have the whole thing ready.
Start with the first word. Just the first word. If someone asks your opinion, you can say, I think, and then pause and let the thought catch up. That's fine. That's normal. That's what everyone does.
I think is one of the most powerful phrases in English conversation because it buys you exactly the right amount of time. Nobody is looking at a clock when you say, I think. They're just waiting for the rest.
Same with, that's a good question. Now, I know people say that phrase is overused, but functionally, it gives you 2 or 3 seconds while it sounds polite. It's a real tool.
Or, let me think about that for a second. Completely natural, completely normal, and suddenly you have space to actually form your thought.
English has a lot of these filler phrases and transition phrases that native speakers use constantly and that language learners often don't know are available to them. Things like, what I mean is, when you want to clarify something, or actually, I think, when you're revising what you just said.
Or just, sorry, I mean, which is the most natural thing in the world. Native speakers correct themselves all the time mid-sentence. It's not embarrassing, it's just talking.
I think one of the biggest myths in language learning is that fluent speakers never make mistakes, never hesitate, and always know exactly what to say. And that myth is so damaging because it creates this impossible standard.
Listen to any real conversation between native speakers and you will hear false starts, corrections, pauses, mispronunciations, people talking over each other, people saying, wait, no, that's not what I meant. It is wonderfully messy.
The goal isn't to speak like a script. The goal is to communicate. Those are different things.
Communicate. That's the word. If the other person understood what you meant, you succeeded. Full stop. Doesn't matter if the grammar was perfect. Doesn't matter if you found the exact word you wanted. Communication happened. That's the win.
And actually, can we talk about something that I think people don't say enough? Making grammar mistakes in a second language is not embarrassing. It is evidence that you are doing something hard.
Yes, it's proof of effort. It's proof that you took a risk. The person who never makes a mistake in English is usually the person who never opens their mouth.
The most embarrassing thing you can do in language learning is play it so safe that you never actually try, because then you never grow. The mistakes are the growing.
And most people, most kind, normal people, are not judging you for making mistakes in their language. They're usually quietly impressed that you're trying it all.
When someone speaks to me in my language and they struggle a little but they're trying, I think it's wonderful. I'm rooting for them. I'm not sitting there mentally grading their grammar.
Nobody is. The grammar police are mostly in your own head.
Very much in your own head. Now, let's talk about something else that I think really helps, and this is about the difference between active and passive English.
Oh, this is an important one.
So, a lot of learners have a very large passive vocabulary, words they understand when they hear or read them, and a much smaller active vocabulary, words they can actually produce in speech quickly.
And the exact gap between those two things is exactly where the freeze lives.
Right. You hear a word, you understand it completely, but when you need to use it yourself, it doesn't come, because you've only ever processed it passively. Your brain has filed it under things I recognize rather than things I can use.
So how do you move vocabulary from passive to active? You use it deliberately, repeatedly. When you learn a new word, don't just note the meaning. Try to say a sentence with it immediately, out loud. Even just one silly sentence that you would never actually say to anyone, just to make your mouth form the word in context.
And then try to use it again the next day and the day after that. Repetition in production is what moves something from the recognition pile to the speaking pile.
This is why just watching English content isn't always enough on its own. Watching is passive, you're receiving the language. Speaking is active, you're producing it, and you need both.
That doesn't mean watching is useless. It's incredibly valuable for exposure, for rhythm, for natural phrasing, but it has to be combined with output, watching and then speaking. Even if it's just repeating lines from a show you just watched, even if it's just retelling the plot of something you saw to an imaginary friend in your bedroom, you are practicing production.
I want to come back to something we touched on earlier, the social fear. Because I think even when people do practice, they often only practice the easy situations. They practice when they're calm, prepared, not being watched.
But real conversation doesn't happen in those conditions. Real conversation is unpredictable. Someone says something you didn't expect. The topic shifts. You have to think on your feet.
So part of developing as a speaker is building tolerance for uncertainty, getting comfortable not knowing where the conversation is going. Because if you're only confident in planned, scripted exchanges, you're going to freeze the moment something unpredictable happens.
And how do you build that tolerance?
Gradually. You start with lower stakes, a cashier, a brief exchange online, a language exchange partner where both of you are learning, and slowly you expose yourself to more unpredictable conversations, more native speakers, more real-time improvisation.
It's like building any kind of resilience. You don't start by jumping into the deep end. You wade in.
And you celebrate the small things. You managed to order something at a restaurant and it came out right? That's real. That's a win. You had a 2-minute conversation with a stranger and they understood you? Remarkable. That happened because of you.
I think learners are very bad at celebrating progress. They're always looking at the gap, how far they still have to go. But the gap feels smaller when you look back at how far you've already come.
Completely. The person who couldn't say a word and now stumbles through conversations, that person has moved. That is progress, even if it doesn't feel like fluency yet.
And here's the thing about fluency. Everyone talks about it like it's a destination you arrive at and then it's done. I became fluent. But fluency is really a spectrum, a direction. You are always becoming more fluent. It doesn't end.
Even native speakers are always expanding their language, learning new words, finding better ways to express things. Nobody finishes language.
So stop waiting to be fluent before you speak. Speak to become fluent. Those are the only options.
The other thing I want to say, and this is for the people who feel like their accent is holding them back. Your accent is not a problem. Let me be very direct about that.
Please say it louder, Jack.
Your accent is not a problem. An accent means you learned another language. It is a marker of your history, your culture, your effort. It is not a flaw. Communication does not require an accent-free voice. It requires a willing voice.
And so many of the most compelling, interesting English speakers in the world have strong accents. The accent is not what makes someone hard to understand. Unclear pronunciation of specific sounds can sometimes be worth working on, but that's a practical thing, not a shame thing.
There's a difference between I want to work on my pronunciation so I'm easier to understand and I'm ashamed of the way I sound. One of those is useful. The other one just hurts you.
And often the shame is the bigger barrier than the accent ever was.
Totally. I've met people with very strong accents who are incredible communicators in English. And I've met people with near-perfect accents who can barely speak because the fear has paralyzed them completely.
Confidence isn't the same as accuracy. You can be confident and inaccurate. You can be accurate and terrified. Ideally, you want both confidence and accuracy. But if you had to pick one to start with the willingness to try.
Start with the willingness. Everything else builds on that.
So, to wrap this up in a way that hopefully feels like something you can actually take with you today, if you can't speak English yet, or you feel like you can't, here's what we want you to remember.
The freeze is not a verdict. It's a phase. It means you're in the hard part. which means you're in the part where growth actually happens.
Your listening and reading ability is real and valuable. You're not starting from zero. You have more than you think. The job now is to move it from your head to your mouth.
Talk to yourself. Seriously, it's not weird. It's training. Your mouth needs practice just like any muscle.
Let go of the perfect sentence. Start with the first word and trust that the rest will follow, because it will. Not always perfectly, but well enough. And well enough is enough.
Use the phrases that buy you time. I think, and let me see, and that's a good question. These are not cheating. They're tools. Native speakers use them constantly.
Make peace with the mistakes. Every mistake is a sentence you were brave enough to try. You can't get that any other way.
And celebrate where you are, not just where you're going. You are somewhere real right now. That matters.
And most importantly, keep showing up. Not just to this channel, though we obviously love that you're here. Keep showing up to the language. Talk when it's hard. Try when it feels embarrassing. Come back after the bad days.
The only people who never become fluent are the ones who stop trying. Everyone else, everyone who keeps going, gets there. Maybe not on the schedule they wanted, but they get there.
So if this conversation helped you today, if even one thing landed in a way that felt useful, please give us a thumbs up. Share it with someone who is going through exactly this, because there are so many people silently struggling with this and feeling alone in it. And maybe seeing this video is exactly what they need right now.
And leave us a comment, in English, any English, even just one sentence about how speaking feels for you. Because that one sentence is already practice. You're already doing it.
Subscribe if you haven't. For real, we pour everything into this channel, and every single person who joins this community makes it more worth doing. Jack will notice you, gratefully, non-creepily.
Very gratefully, very non-creepily. Promise.
Until next time, open your mouth a little more today than you did yesterday. Even just a little. That's all it takes.
Take care, everyone.
See you soon.